Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar entitled How Water Utilities Are Transforming to a Customer and Digital First Approach, Insights from Yarra Valley Water. My name is Michael Silber, Event Director for Enlit Australia, the conference and exhibition for the energy transition and focused on the entire supply chain from end to end. And we are pleased to present this live virtual event. We'd like to thank and acknowledge our sponsor for today's event, Salesforce Industries. Before we begin the discussion, there are a few housekeeping items to cover off. First, today's webinar will be available on demand after the live session on our website, and that's inlit-australia.com. And we've also added some attachments which are available through the Handouts tab on the right-hand side of your screen. Next, we'd love to hear from you during today's presentation. So if you have a question for any of our speakers, feel free to send it through to the Ask Staff question box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll be answering the questions at the end of today's session. However, if we don't get to your question during today's webinar, we'll be sure to try to follow up afterwards. And at last, we'd like to encourage you to share today's webinar on your social networks. And you can learn more about each of our panelists by clicking on the bio section on the right-hand side of the screen. So let me introduce our panel. We have with us David McDonald, who's a strategic account director for Salesforce Industries, and Rupesh Rittal, who's the technology strategy and security for Yarra Valley Water. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Thanks for joining us. I'd like to begin the discussion with a question directed at David, and it's really kind of a broad question about what are the most critical disruptive forces currently driving change in the utility sector. David?
Sure, thanks, Michael. Look, I think there are a number of forces that are really driving change and getting organizations, particularly in the sector, to really take notice of what's going on. And certainly there are three trends in mind. They're not emerging trends. There are pressures or trends that have been around for a little while now, but certainly there have been topics of discussion that we've had with our customers quite a lot in recent times. And the first one is really around transforming the customer experience. The digital technology has empowered the consumer more than ever before. And with that comes a higher expectation with regards to more personalized products, services to optimize their work, to improve their way of life, and to help them in their goals. So we see this as a critical trend and equally a great opportunity for the sector to meeting or closing the gap in these expectations. So businesses must deal with the reality of the empowered customer. So management are aspiring to establishing long-term customer relationships with solving these challenges within the water domain. So, the questions and conversations we're having with water authorities and companies, they're asking themselves, how do we move from a premise viewpoint to a customer and a relationships viewpoint? How do we improve our net promoter score and at the same time increase employee experience and drive productivity and efficiency gains? So how do we enable customers and curate that relationship across multiple channels while getting a 360-degree view? And right now we're working with a number of organizations to help them address this transformation in customer engagement. The second trend that we're seeing is the reuse of wastewater to support a circular economy. And at a very high level, the life cycle of water usage is water is collected or it's extracted from a source. It then goes through a quality assurance process and is used as intended, and then treated and discharged in a receiving water body or a water management system. However, the wastewater and its discharged sludge contains a number of valuable resources such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and other nutrients that can be recovered and reused. So what we're seeing is organizations are making this change from that traditional linear approach to that of a circular economy on how we can use this. How can we reduce water consumption and be able to reuse some of these items that are being discharged. So this is really a huge force that's driving organizations to really look at the way that they're managing wastewater. Some companies are doing it well, they're addressing this problem. Others companies are looking at the oil and gas sector, who use a massive amount of water in the extraction of their commodities. And they've come up with novel approaches on how they can reuse the wastewater. So I think water companies are looking at adjacent sectors to help them realize those goals. I think the third item or trend that we're discussing, within the C-suite level is around sustainability. And sustainability across three different lenses, from an agricultural perspective, that around sustainability. How can we be more efficient in irrigation management and techniques such as erosion or risk management, flood warning systems, and precision farming systems to be used to optimize agricultural production using the least amount of water. So this is something that is quite top of mind. The other lens on sustainability is one that we all are seeing, and that is environment, with the respect to climate change. So, organizations are using more sophisticated water modeling technologies and techniques to determine current vulnerabilities and suggest effective solutions to meet that need. The third one is more, I guess, of a softer issue, and that is sustainability around the customer. And that comes really down to affordability and the vulnerability, particularly in this time of pandemic, where consumers and customers are undergoing hardships because they've been forced to take time off work or take an extended leave of absence from work. So how do water authorities be sympathetic to that and be able to address that need? And I think that's sort of the three, I won't say main ones, but definitely conversations that we're having with our customers.
Yeah, it sure seems that we're living in an era where there's more disruption than ever before. And I know that's a cliche and a truism, but I think the reason for that is because customers are no longer passive. They really are asking a lot of questions, which kind of leads us to the next discussion point. And this, I'll direct this one at Rupesh, and then David can jump on after Rupesh speaks. It seems today's customers have high expectations for service experiences from other places in their lives. For instance, Amazon's cart transactions that are seamless across devices, or interruptions, or Uber, of course, with their real-time location sharing. Airbnb is another example. In the light of this, how are your customers interacting with you? Are you looking to provide more real-time status updates and personalized experiences at Yarra Valley Water? You're on mute.
Absolutely, Michael. I got into the trap of being double muted again. But I think I might actually hand it over to David to start with, because I'd like to actually understand what the experiences are from a global perspective, and then I can bring it home on what we're doing from a Yarra Valley Water point of view.
Yeah, sure. Sure, Rupesh, no problem. Look, at Salesforce, we're really passionate about this. There's a huge focus on helping our customers realize their goals and ambitions on moving to a digital operation. And they're leveraging things like Salesforce Customer 360. That really is a catalyst in transforming our customers' businesses and bringing their company and their customers a lot closer together. So we do that by integrating a CRM platform. And what Salesforce does really well is break down the silos between business units, whether that is marketing, sales, commerce, service, and IT teams, by giving everyone a single shared view of your customer. And we present that in a very easy, formatted, very simplistic manner. So it allows the teams within our customers to collaborate, to get a clear understanding of each customer. And what's important is that they can deliver this in personalized experiences. So to meet the customer's expectations and to build lasting and more trusted relationships. What's really powerful about a Customer 360 is that it's highly flexible and scalable by virtue, but it contains core omni-channel processes specifically designed for the sector.
Thanks, David. Yeah, so from a Yarra Valley Water perspective, we're doing extensive research with the customers, and what we're finding is, yes, there's absolute a need to look at information in more real time or near real time. What we're finding is, I'll give you an example where we've done a lot of work with our contractor, field contractor base. Yarra Valley Water uses external parties to do the field work, and where we actually have the field worker going and doing the work and changing the status of the work. I'm on a truck or I'm actually at the site doing some work. Customers are absolutely expecting that they understand what is actually going on, and we've done a whole lot of work with our contractors to provide near real-time information on the status updates of the maintenance work. We've also done a large amount of research, and I think a lot of water utilities are actually doing that globally, is moving more towards digital meters. And what research tells us is, yes, there are groups of customers who are absolutely interested in managing water in more real time. So looking at the daily usage to look at if they can be more sustainable from a water perspective, reduce the consumption. But I think the more we dig into it, what we find is, right now we actually do manual reads of the meters. So every quarter, someone actually rolls up in the truck, goes to the meter, reads the information and sends it to us so that we can do the billing. But if there's a burst in your property, or there's a leak, ongoing leak, it's actually results in a bill shock, and then we actually have a whole lot of I suppose interaction with the customer to resolve that, and sometimes there's disagreements and things like that. So all of those things play a role. But with digital meters, what we are finding is that we can be more proactive. So if we actually see continuous flow, which is out of normal trend for that customer, then we can actually raise a event or an alert to the customer to say, hey, maybe there's a leak and you should actually explore that. And what we're finding is that if we catch the leak early, it's actually potentially hundreds or thousands of dollars of cost that we can avoid from a customer perspective. Yeah. So, and the other thing that we're actually doing from a customer around transforming around the customer, which is part of our corporate strategy, is ensuring that we are personalizing the experiences for the customer. So customers who want to actually have more interaction with Yarra Valley Water and get more real-time information about whether their water consumption or faults in their areas or bursts, we actually absolutely designing our processes and experience for customers around that.
Yeah, thanks for that. Well, one of the things I've been hearing is that that the customer, the more engaged customer, really wants kind of a one-stop shop for their utilities. They don't want a bill from water, or they don't want a bill from electric. They want everything to kind of be bundled. So are you finding that to be a pressure you're getting from customers, and what are some of the other pressures and expectations you're seeing right now from your customer base and consumers?
Yeah, so there's a potential for that. I think there's an aspiration to combine all utilities into one experience, but I think it's a journey that the whole utility industry is going through. There's lots of there's no standardized way of interacting between the utilities and things like that, so that probably has to be sorted out at an industry level. But what I would say is, we're looking at not just from a utility perspective, we're looking at it from how the customer is actually living day to day. So, and I think the digital side has heightened in this time of pandemic, because Melbourne was actually an extended lockdown. So we were, my family was ordering Uber, Amazon, Catch, all of those sort of stuff. It's all online, and I think what we're finding with the younger generation who are becoming customers now, digital is the way they think, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, doing the banking and things like that. And I think as a utility, we just have to play in that ecosystem. It's just an expectation. And, if you have to pick up a call or you have to go to a reception or a post office to actually pay a bill, that's like something alien to them. So we're just absolutely shifting the way on the customer needs to behave, or what is wanting to behave, and adjusting our organization to that.
So can we expect to see our bills coming through a TikTok dance in the near future? At any rate,
If it's your preference, sure.
So following on that, and you've kind of touched on it, can you elaborate on how they're expecting that digital experience, such as the ones they're getting from Amazon and Uber and places like that?
Yeah, so I think if you look at the Amazon or Uber or even Netflix experience, I think I like to talk about Netflix these days more, because they've actually really gone down to a, rather than doing a demographic or a customer type segmentation, they've actually honed into the segment of one, which is, the content is tailored to your needs. And I think Amazon was probably one of the birthplaces of that, where they actually nailed how to actually personalize experiences for customers. And what we're doing from our perspective is we have customers who are businesses, residential customers, but we've got developers and things like that. So they actually already have different types of experiences, and what we need to be able to understand is what context the customer is interacting with us, and tailoring the experience to that context. And I think that's what is going to drive, from Yarra Valley Water perspective at least, when we transform around the customer.
Yeah, I agree with that. So David, let me direct this at you. Utilities do have a factor of being a trusted advisor for the supply of essential needs to the consumer. So how does your particular customer experience at Salesforce, or your customer experience strategy, contribute to that relationship of trust?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a good question. Look, I think first and foremost, customers want the assurance that the data that they have access to is secure and accurate, whether that is consumption or billing data, or even work-related data. And we find that trust becomes elevated when the relationship moves beyond a service provider to that of an advisory relationship, when the conversation or the interactions lead to advising them how the consumer can reduce their consumption, advising them of what new technologies and appliances are available that can assist with the reduction of consumption, or how a change in behavior, in the consumer's behavior, can contribute to savings and reduction in consumption. So use of actionable insights to elevate the relationships of you have with your customers is key. And that's what we're doing with our customers by overlaying some technology and helping them drive some insights. So, data is only golden when you're using it. And that use needs to be actionable. So we're really helping our customers get a 360-degree view of their customers. You asked a question a bit earlier to Rupesh on whether you can expect a provider to be able to service all of the utility needs. And while that's we're not ready for it in the Australian marketplace from a water perspective, the water utilities are deregulated in other parts of the world, and certainly there are organizations that are providing power, whether it's electricity, gas, renewables, and water, and also adjacent products like broadband, mobile phone. So it's being able to bring all this data together, present it in a meaningful way, so you can start having meaningful discussions But more importantly, as Rupesh mentioned, and I love that term, the segment of one. Gone are the days of segmenting your customer base, and your customers don't want to be segmented or categorized. They want to be dealt as an individual. And I think it's really important for organizations to take the necessary steps, and technologies enable to do that, to address that.
Yeah, I might just add to that from a trust perspective, because we actually have we provide essential service in reality. So drinking water, and then we're taking the poo away to treat it. And I think to be able to gain the customer's trust, we just need to ensure that we are reliable in delivering clean drinking water, and they can trust us that we'll take the waste away and not spill it into the stream. It's going to go and properly be processed, so that there's no harm created to the environment or the people or in the community. So I think that's actually in the forefront of our mind, Michael.
Thanks, Rupesh. That's appreciate that insight. So we have a couple of audience survey questions during today's webinar, and we'd like to pop up the first survey question and take a few minutes to answer that, and in a few moments we'll put up the results. In the meantime, we'll continue the discussion, and this is really very pertinent for today. David, I'll start with you. What has the impact of COVID been on utilities, and what are the organizational impacts of COVID? And how is that being addressed at Yarra Valley Water? So maybe we start with David on this.
Yeah, sure. I'll let Rupesh address how Yarra Valley is addressing that and supporting the pandemic. But look, beyond the immediate fallout of the crisis, it's become clear that COVID-19 is radically accelerating the digital future. If you consider the sea change in customer behavior and expectations over the last few months, we've seen that movement patterns have flipped. Previously, customers were on the go, enterprises stayed still. Now customers are housebound. Enterprises need to find new ways of reaching them. Workforces have atomized, so the face-to-face group collaboration has stopped. People are working in environments not really set up for work. We saw a number of organizations bring their operations back onshore. Repatriation of call centers and other back office functions are now brought back in-house and onshore. And Salesforce it really mobilized very, very quickly to support our customers in doing that, particularly in the call center space. So we were able to help them, stand up virtual pods or virtual call centers to allow this sort of collaborative nature, but more importantly, to help maintain that touch point, that really important touch point between the agents, the CSRs, and the customers. The other thing is, around safety and reliability. There are more than ever, I think that is top of mind for for consumers and customers. You've got housebound families. They wonder if they can trust deliveries from suppliers. Requiring a higher level supply chain of safety and reliability. So communication is absolutely key. Being able to reach out, let the customer know, the consumer know where their technician is. What time are they going to arrive? Who that technician is? What other equipment are they bringing with them in the household? So we've been able to stand up, some mobile apps and really help our customers embrace that and provide that trust. And to bring that level of ease that the customer is looking for.
Yeah,
thanks, David.
So I think that's some good points there, David. From a Yarra Valley Water perspective, I'd probably like to talk about three things. One being from a staff perspective. The first one. and probably touch on a bit of mental health, working from home, as well as from a customer perspective as well. So the first one around staff, I think we were quite fortunate that we had the right infrastructure and technologies deployed to be able to transition during lockdown. We have 700 staff at Yarra Valley Water. We transitioned them from on-prem in the office to working from home within 3 to 5 days. Yeah, there were some teething issues, but we were able to resolve it. But such a mass transition for an organization that was quite impressive from our perspective. We expected it would probably fall apart, but we managed to contain that. The other component from a staff perspective is when we transitioned to mental health. We were in lockdown for an extended period. People were working from home, but actually they were just at home trying to work. And I think that's the analogy we've actually used at Yarra Valley Water, because we have children homeschooling, children that were actually going to childcare. They are now at home, and while the parents are trying to work, so trying to juggle work and life at the same time in the same environment. There was a lot of trauma and stress potentially. So Yarra Valley Water did a whole lot of work around the staff to ensure that we had the right things in place to support our staff from a mental health perspective and keep them engaged. The last component from a customer perspective, I think within that there's two sides of the things. A lot of customers, some customers probably suffered loss of jobs. Some customers probably had, incidents in the family due to COVID related. As you know, we actually lost a few hundred people due to the pandemic. Then there's also, on top of that, just the safety side of things. So we actually did a whole lot of work from people who are in hardship. We worked to support them to defer their bills or spread them out, or where there was extreme hardship, to be able to treat it as bad debt and not actually try to recoup that money. And we actually had support from the government as well to support that. The other thing that was important was safety. So we're a very safety aware organization, so we had to change our processes for field workers when they actually interacting with customers, or actually digging a hole on the streets to make sure that they create the right boundaries. We had to work with the contractors to ensure that they had the right safety measures for wearing masks or being sanitized and things like that when they're working with multiple people in the field. So holistically, I think Yarra Valley Water did a great job around looking at both staff, the field work, and the customers holistically when we were dealing with the pandemic.
Yeah, I think that I was just thinking this today, that much like after 9/11, the pandemic is going to fundamentally change some of the ways we do business going forward, pandemic or not. Perhaps we can pop up the results from the first survey question, and we can take a look at that, and we'll leave that up for a few seconds, and we'll continue the discussion. Rupesh, I'm going to direct this at you. What do you see as the critical factors in improving customer utility relationships via digital platforms? And how are you leveraging data? For example, new data collection, insights, sharing capabilities.
I think it would be fair to say that we have done a lot of work around data collection for customer interactions, or we've done a whole lot of trials around collecting information around our network. How it's performing, what's the pressure in the network, where the faults are happening. Those sort of information is coming to our organization, and we are actually looking at ways how we can actually get further insights on this data that we have collected. So I think recently we hired a data scientist in the asset planning space who's looking at modeling using this data. What can we actually get out to be more proactive from an asset management and network performance management, because traditionally the water authorities have been very reactive. So we'll run something to the end of life and then we'll try to actually replace it, or if a burst happens then we'll actually go and fix it. The mind shift that we're having now is to be able to sustain more water loss, to avoid water loss, be more proactive in going and looking at hotspots and resolving the issues up front. So that's how data is playing a role for us at the moment. But in the future, we are looking at using customer data, asset data, network performance information, and pulling all of that together to see what else we can actually do to optimize our operations as an organization. And in the end, it's all about being proactive so that we can keep the water more affordable for our customers.
Thanks, Rupesh. Before I ask David to comment on that, I'd like to ask two things. Audience, we're going to be taking questions shortly from you, and I know some questions have been coming in, some really good ones. So please submit your questions. And I'd also like to ask that survey question number 2 gets put up on the screen. And then David, maybe you can answer the question that Rupesh just addressed.
Yeah, so we're addressing the point around data and how that's being leveraged and used. Look, there's many case studies that we can cite. We've got a number of water authorities and utilities that we've helped over the years in Australia and certainly globally as well. But one that comes to mind is United Utilities. They're UK's largest listed water company. They're a great example of digital first, and they've done some really unique things on how to leverage data to get some insights. But just on United Utilities, they're based in northwest England. They serve around 7 million customers or consumers, and they manage around 40,000 square kilometres of pipes, 200 reservoirs, and 80 treatment plants. So, with that, there's a lot of operational technology that they have to support all of that. And invariably, this is an issue that all organizations have. They've got really good data, but it's siloed, right? So how can you address and make informed decisions when there is pertinent information and data sitting in multiple sources? So they partnered with Salesforce and went down the path of a real digital transformation approach. And the first thing they addressed was the field service operations. And look, field service, they're an extension of your organization, even if largely is made up of contractors. And in this case, it was. They are ambassadors of the organization because they're going out, they're in the streets, they're working in the community, and they're out in the household. So we were able to, by means of standing up mobile apps and tablets, be able to surface really powerful and strong information that allowed them to have meaningful discussions with the consumer. They were able to go out on site with the right equipment in place, rather than go back to the depot and reinstall or re-equip their trucks. And one of the largest costs attributed to a water organization is the field service operations. It's truck roll. And if you can reduce the number of truck rolls or prevent trucks from coming back to the depot, you're winning, right? You're reducing your cost to serve there. But I think what we did was, there were 30 different sources of information, and we stood up a platform using Salesforce, and in this instance it was Tableau, to really create a data science platform. And we were able to consolidate billions and billions of rows of data to really drive strong analytics and insights around how to improve operational performance and therefore the customer experience. And that was a really great case study. So, it's something that we're replicating. We're doing something similar in the US as well, and talking about how we can do that with some local providers here in Australia.
That's great. Well, I think we're going to take questions from the audience, and as I said, we have some really good ones that have come in. So, audience, I know we have a good-sized group out there. Please send in your questions. We have some time to answer them. So, the first question we'll start. It's directed at Yarra Valley Water, but I'm sure both of you can comment on that. And the question is, how does Yarra Valley Water manage a customer who may ask something outside of the fault in hand? For example, while you are here, can you tell me my next bill date?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good question. I haven't actually thought about that, but come to reflect on it, on the question. I think what we're actually doing is trying to actually do research with the customers, and if that is a need around, okay, while you're here, can you tell me something else about, you know, my bill or something like that? If that's absolutely what the customer is looking for, we'll actually bill for that. But there's two parts to it, you know. We can actually be innovative and provide that information to the customer as a proactive mechanism, based on the type of queries and the volume of queries that come through to our organization. So, for example, if we actually say, and you know, the Salesforce Industries platform is actually well placed for that for us, is if we actually see a high volume of queries in our contact center coming through about, you know, when is my bill date, or what's my bill going to be, can you actually give me an insight on that? We can actually bring all of that information up front when the customer is coming to our digital channels, so that we know that, you know, there's a good chance that the customer might actually have that query if it's a high volume query that we have. So it's not just about providing the information to the customer for the sake of providing the information. It has to be based on the type of transaction they're doing and contextualizing the volume of transactions that come to Yarra Valley Water, and testing whether that's going to be useful for the customer when they come and talk to us.
So David,
yeah, that's right. It's some good points there, Rupesh. This is not a differentiator. This is table stake stuff. You need to have this, you know, because the customers expect it. They want to engage. They quite often they don't want to ring a call center. They want to go on a web portal which is secure, that they can log into and have that access to be able to see what's happened in the past in terms of consumption, and what their next bill date is. So, you know, we're helping a lot of customers do this, and again, yeah, it's not a differentiator. I think customers are expecting this as it's, you know, for their landing page when they get to that portal.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get to the next question, perhaps we could pop up the results from the second survey question, and we could take a look at that. So the second question is also directed at Rupesh, and it says, as a water utility, we have property-based billing, but the customers we deal with on a day-to-day basis, particularly with faults and emergencies, are not the people we have contact details for, or as they are renters. How do you deal with this challenge when it comes to digital transformation in particular? Proactive engagement around disruptions, outages with people that often live at the property but are not in our system.
Yes, so I think at the moment, I think we can only go and contact customers directly for the customers that we understand. You know, if a burst example happened in an area, but someone was passing by and wasn't a Yarra Valley Water customer, we can certainly actually create contact with that customer, and we create the contact record. We also actually ask the customer, do they want to be able to continue to get updates on how we're resolving that issue that you found, but you're not our customer. So I think we capture all of that information as a contact record, and if the person who raised the fault wants to get notified, we can actually notify them via SMS, I think being the primary channel. The other thing is that from if there was a fault in an area, or we had to address an incident in an area due to water or sewer, we have mechanisms these days in the digital world where you can identify, using Facebook or Twitter and those sort of things, where your customer base is, and you can target audiences in an area using postcode and things like that. So we're not doing that yet, but should there be a need, we would actually work with those social platforms to be able to broadcast to a targeted user base. But at the moment, we are, in a generic sense, as a starting point, we're using social media platforms to send information out about, there is a fault in this area, and we direct them to our faults map where they can actually find more information about the issues. I think we're just crawling in that space, but there's lots more to do.
David, what's your experience been with that issue?
Yeah, look, there's two. I'll take that as a two-part question. The first is the relationships of customers or contacts within your database, right? And what Salesforce lends itself to is being able to track everybody and all parties associated to either the premise or, in fact, the meter point. So built on industry standards. So we're not a generic solution here. We're talking about an industry platform, for the utility sector. So we can identify who the landlord is, the property manager, the tenant, and any associated contacts or household people within that household, which is also different to the actual meter point. So that's something that we do really well, and we're looking to leverage that at Yarra Valley Water. The second part of that question is, how do you contact someone that is not known to you? That is difficult. And I know organizations, and I've seen the social media feeds that Yarra Valley Water put out on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, etc., where those people don't physically reside in their database or are not known to them. So I think social platforms become increasingly more important to communicate with a wider group of people within a particular jurisdiction or area within their catchment.
Well, I think if we had no further audience questions, we're nearing the end of this fantastic discussion. I really appreciate your time, Ritesh. David, it's been great. A lot of really good insights, succinctly made, which is a pleasure. So on behalf of Enlit Australia and, of course, today's sponsor, Salesforce Industries, I'd like to thank you both. And I'd like to thank you guys for sharing your insights with us. It's been very helpful, very enlightening. I'd like to remind our audience that there's a recording of today's webinar, and that's available along with our other digital products, Enlit Australia digital products. And that will be on our website, which is, of course, as I said earlier, is enlit-australia.com. We look forward to you joining us next year at our live event. Watch for some exciting announcements on that in the next few days. And of course, if you need more information on our live event, you can ask anyone on our team. You can see them on the now on the slide on the screen. And well, how about this? I'm wrapping up. Shall we take another question? It just came up. How about we have some time? You want to take another question? I've done the wrap up, and I'll just.
No problem.
Why don't we go for that? It's how is Yarra Valley using or planning to use Salesforce to provide customers with a digital channel for interactions?
So we're actually at the beginning of our journey, but we've got some bold aspirations on how we can leverage, Salesforce Industries. I think the important bit is working in partnership with Salesforce to see what industry solutions are actually coming out and how we can actually leverage that, because the last thing we want to be able to do is build and customize the Salesforce platform to our processes and things like that. And what we find with Salesforce Industries is that we can actually absolutely accelerate our business value to our customers by focusing on the customer experience rather than actually building the processes in the technology, because we get that most of it out of the box. And I think that's for us is a digital business accelerator right there, Michael. And from a functional perspective, we're looking at leveraging Salesforce ecosystem and Industries for doing self-service for residential and business customers, developers. We want to be able to capture our stakeholder interests, as well as making sure that we have tailored experiences for anyone dealing with a customer at Yarra Valley Water.
Good. Any thoughts on that, David? Or
look, it's exciting. Great customer, Yarra Valley. I know phase 1 went in without any hitch, on time, on budget. I'm sure Rupesh is happy about that. But look, I think it really is a partnership approach. We bring some point of view and thought to the table, and it's been highly collaborative. So we can't wait to get the next phase underway, and maybe come back later next year and give you an update on how it went.
Absolutely, we'll have you back. Well, I've gone through the wrap up earlier. I'm not going to do it again. Thanks, guys. I know we have some live links to Salesforce white papers. If we could put those up, that'd be great. If not, I think we can wrap it up now, and we'll have you back for an update in the next few months.
Great. Thanks, Michael. Thanks for hosting us.
Okay, guys. Thanks. Have a good afternoon.
See you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.